this whole second part of the meeting starts with the students, because at the end of the day it's for them that we have to provide the housing solutions. So I'm going to invite 5 people to the table to discuss the things we need to deliver, and based on the question, what do students need and want? And I first want to ask Niels van Deuren to come forward. Niels asked me before the pause what questions I'm going to ask him, because he was a little nervous. Yeah. And I said, I'm not going to tell you.
Normally I have only to present to entrepreneurship classes, so suddenly now a group of adults is something completely new for me. So I hope you will like it as well.
So Niels, tell me a little bit about you.
Yeah, my name is Niels. I recently graduated from the Rotterdam School of Management at Erasmus University in Rotterdam. And now I'm now here in Amsterdam to tell a bit about my business, I guess.
Yes, you're the founder of Housing Anywhere.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, Housing Anywhere, it's a startup. The word startup already was a few times mentioned here. It basically started when I went in 2008. I went abroad from Rotterdam to Singapore. And I wanted to rent out my room for those couple of months in Rotterdam, because my room was empty anyway. And then I went looking, and all my Dutch friends said, no, I'm not interested in your room for just 4 months. I'm looking for something longer. And then I was thinking, yeah, who else could be interested in my room? So I went to the international office of Erasmus University. Laura is here as well today. And I said, do you maybe have a student who is looking for a room for a couple of months? And then she said, oh, we have plenty of students. There's such difficulty in Rotterdam. It was in the year that exchange students were housed in mobile caravans on campus. So it was really terrible. It was not good for the image. So Erasmus University was really looking for a solution. So then I proposed, shall we make a platform where all the outgoing exchange students can rent out the rooms so that incoming students can take those rooms? And well, that happened then. So we set it up in Rotterdam. And a year later, we managed that 300 students from Rotterdam posted their room and made it available for students coming to Rotterdam. And that was suddenly the time that also Maastricht University, in the south of Holland, they called and they said, hey, we heard about your platform. Can you also launch it in Maastricht? Mm. So that's how it happened in Maastricht. And then suddenly all the universities in Holland, they said, we want this as well. So most universities in the University of Applied Science, we launched there.
How does it work? I mean, website?
Yeah, housinganywhere.com. It's just students who go abroad post a room, and students looking for a room take those rooms.
Okay.
It's very simple.
So you just said, I'm looking for a room, or do you, and at the same time somebody's offering rooms?
Yeah, so it starts with that the university tells all the students who go abroad, they say, put your empty room on housinganywhere.com,
okay, and
make it available for our incoming students.
Yes. Okay.
Is it like the sharing concept, the sharing economy that was already mentioned by the speaker of MRT today? Like making empty spaces available for all the people.
Who pays who?
For students, it's completely for free.
Okay.
Our business model works at universities. They take a membership on our platform. Okay. So universities pay, and then students can use it for free.
What car do you drive now?
I still have my free Rabobank bike.
So, no, you're not going to go public or anything like that soon with your website?
Not
Can you live from your website?
Yeah, I work now full-time for more than a year on it. Okay. And we have a team with 15 full-time people nowadays.
Okay. And it works? It works. And expanding? Yeah.
Expanding, growth, yeah. We have
so how many transactions do you have now?
This year we had over 5,000 rooms rented. Okay. Worldwide. Okay. Our main market is still Holland, but we even now expanding in Germany, Italy, also Mexico, and Brazil. So it's growing. Yeah.
What do students want? And I'm only not only asking that to you as an entrepreneur, but also as a former student.
Yeah. The international students or the local students?
Having this website, you know which rooms go first, which setup work best for students. What can you tell me about that?
As students, they talk about housing. They want primarily location. Location goes first. Price goes second.
No science park here in Amsterdam. Is that too far away?
In the end, if there's no location available for your price, then you go to Science Park. Okay. Location, students always look first for center or near university or between the bars and the university, somewhere there.
Yeah. What?
I think yes, location comes first and then price comes second for students. But then of course, yeah, given the boundaries of the price.
Okay. All right. I'm going to invite the next one to the table, Samuel Vetrak, CEO Student Marketing Youth Travel Consultancy. Are you there? You are there. Hello.
Hi, Rudy.
Hi. So, can you tell me a little bit about you and what your contribution is to this issue of what students want?
I got an invitation from Frank when we met in Berlin at ITB. What we do, we are a development consultancy sitting in Vienna, and we basically monitor the student market and identify the opportunities and try our clients to connect them with the opportunities and reach the goals. And so we work with the UN, with governments, cities, associations, and sitting on 600 different sources so that we know what's going on in the student market. Mm-hmm. And we use the knowledge to navigate the decisions.
What's going on in the international youth travel?
So as I was asked to inform the audience about the global mobilities and opportunities, I prepared a few slides, if I can.
Yep.
Shall we? So as you can see over there on the sides, this is an overall mobility visualization of international and domestic higher education students. So basically, where we are, what's the situation? The blue line features the growth of domestic higher education students. So we go from 180 million students now to 255 million. But to be accurate, this growth is not driven by Europe, but the developing countries mostly. We'll go to more details later on. And what is even more important or interesting is the performance of international higher education market, which is the blue line run against the right axis. And as you can see, we're going from 3.6 million students to 7 million students by 2020. These statistics is done by UNESCO, the OECD statistics, which counts also not only international but also foreign students, which is a slight difference. However, the main message over here is that we will almost double in just 6 or 7 years from now, and so will the capital value or market value. And the international students will become a good opportunity, especially for Europe, where the domestic higher education student numbers are not increasing, in some countries actually decreasing. So the international higher education students will balance out the missing numbers. Moreover, the students, international students are usually looking more for the value than price. They come from the elite of the source countries they are coming from, so they have money. Therefore, they also need a solid or upper level of accommodation, which is relevant for our audience over here. Below the graph, you can also see the situation worldwide. What's the market value of a student housing worldwide? So we are roughly around $80 billion now, where students live in student halls. And we will go to 26 billion by 2020. We also featured, for this opportunity, the market value of hostels. As we see the phenomenon of student hostels around the world now, so the premises are used for long-term students during the year and for short-term stays in the shoulder season. So the total market value of hostel world is $16 billion. It's all calculated in dollars, as is a worldwide figure. And we'll go to 23 billion. These are mathematical predictions, obviously. If something happens, like economic downturn, something can slightly change, but we don't envisage a downturn. It is a rather conservative estimate, what you can see. the sector actually is the most resilient sectors out of those we know. We compare the sector with other forms of mobility around the world, be it sport, business, leisure, etc. So students move for education, that's a sector of its own. And this is the most resilient sector, no downturn in 2008, 2009. We had conversations yesterday at dinner, and actually a couple of investors were saved by having investments in this sector because it performs, it's growing, it's sizable, it's resilient, so it's a good sector to be in.
But part of the discussion of this morning and also of yesterday evening was, but we're not sure where this growth will take place. Isn't that also your story?
Partially I can answer this question.
Yeah.
So if you can move the next slide. As we talk in Europe over here, then we prepared 6 slides on Europe. So this is a distribution of domestic higher education students within Europe. And as you can see, just proportionally, if you want more details, then the presentation can be sent to you, or I don't know whether, Frank, it will be available on the website later on or something. Or if you leave a business card, you can receive the full presentation with all the details. But this is just proportionally so that you can see where are the domestic higher education students distributed, and what's the cohort, what's the population. Can we move with the second one? This will actually not change very much. So it's just that it will be quite stable. In Netherlands, a little bit more students by 2020, but many other nationalities will decrease the number. Much more important, interesting, it's international higher education student cohort. So you can see proportionally, where is it now? 83% of mobility comes from within Europe. The other 17% are coming from outside Europe. They pay different fees for tuition, but they usually pay the same for housing. Can we move to the next one? This is the student housing market value. So we calculated the average usage of student housing, average price of student housing per country, the student mobility, and calculated the estimated market value per market. We actually have it per city as well. So again, just proportionally, you can see that what are the major players over here. The interesting message is also in context of the first morning session and yesterday meeting in a city hall, that Netherlands is quite a significant player when it comes to market value in total, but actually is not used that much as it could be when it comes to a level of money being here. What is important here, and you cannot see on a graph, there is different usage of student housing in different countries. So, for example, in Netherlands, only 18% of students are living within student housing halls. And the more eastern you go and the more northern you go, that's roughly, the more students use student halls to be accommodated in. So there are some countries that have only 2%, and there are countries that go as high as 23%. Next one, please. And this is a breakdown to cities. So you can see some cities doing better when it comes to international students. Roughly, the best players are London, Vienna, Paris, Zurich, Madrid, Barcelona. To cut the long story short, we can go to the next slide, which is a message. These are we calculated what will be the student demand for particular cities from domestic and international higher education students by 2020. And we created a ranking of top 10 cities by 2020, and you can see what are the growth rates, and what will be the final cohort of international students in particular cities. So as you can see, Vienna is doing the best performance, followed by London, Madrid, Barcelona, and so on. show with the last one. And we prepared also the market value of hostel world because, as I said, it's connected. Not only the student housing premises are used during the year for long-term staying students, but also for short-term later on, as well as some student housing premises are rented for language camps or summer camps. So they get additional value during the summer from let's say 2-3 weeks stays from junior students that are bought by language camps or summer camps. So as you can see, proportionally, these are the market values of hostel work in different cities. So this is to answer your question, where the demand is, where is the growth.
Why Vienna? Why? Because you're there? What's the reason Vienna is doing so well?
Nothing to do with us.
No? Oh, okay. Could be.
I think Vienna, in a way, is sort of a hidden gem that nobody explores so much, but the demand is already there. It's a natural historical hub for student mobility.
Okay.
It's quite attractive. It's an unexplored city for many students. So what I think the other trend, which we have not so much room to mention over here, is diversification. So international students are leaving. They still go to mainstream hubs, but they opt for others as well, like Manchester or Munich, etc. So they're doing quite well, surprisingly well. And Vienna is...
Is it the level of education over there? Is it the diversity of the program? Is it great promotion?
It's great brand. Vienna is great brand. It's very international. Vienna has the most international conferences in the world, like 187 a year. So every second day there is an international conference. So people come, they visit, including parents, and they consider Vienna as a prestigious city to let their children study over there.
Okay, thank you. I would like to invite another, take your chair, and we'll ask Michele da Silva to join us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome. So, first of all, tell me a little bit, you are partner and director of Britannia Student Services
Yes.
Limited.
Yes, we're a London-based student accommodation agency. We were established in 1997, and our main focus is in housing international students.
Okay.
A lot of the students that come to London that we house are language students, and that's really how we started. But since then, we now accommodate students following all types of courses, whether they be university or other types of course.
And what's your role exactly? What do? You lease, you're an agent, or you owner?
We are an agent, but we started as an agent, but we also do lease some buildings as well. We started off mainly with homestays, so we have a very large database of student homestays all throughout London, through 5 zones in London. Then we saw there was a need for halls of residence accommodation for international students who were coming for short stays, language students who came for 2 or 4 weeks. They couldn't really stay in a hall of residence. They had to go to a homestay. So we started off...
Maybe, sorry, can you explain homestay?
Yes, sorry.
That's an English word.
Yes, homestay. Basically staying in somebody's home, in a family home, which of course is very good for students coming to learn a language. And of course in the early days they go to a strange city and they're looked after. But we find that students more and more now want more of an independent lifestyle. I mean, homestay still has its place, but since halls of residence as an option have now become possible for short stays, and that's something that we've done as a company. We've actually bought space, and whereas before an international language student couldn't stay in a hall of residence for unless they signed up for a whole academic year, what we did is we contracted with private halls, and therefore we're able to sell stays for as little as two weeks.
And you get paid per rental contract or something like that, or rental agreement?
Yes, I mean, it depends. Not everything carries a rental agreement.
Okay.
I mean, like a homestay, that doesn't carry a rental agreement. Staying in a hall of residence, that's a license agreement as opposed to a lease.
Okay.
But what we've tried to do, and I think have done quite successfully over the years, is to sort of open up the possibility of stay at a hall of residence for short stay students, starting off in the summer.
So how can they find you?
Well, they can find us. We do a lot of marketing.
Yeah.
We are members of a number of associations, obviously internet, social media, and we go to a number of international workshops and trade fairs and things like that.
So if my daughter wants to go to London, I mean that's my point of reference.
Yes.
How can she find you?
Well, she can find us on the internet. She can Google us. She can.
Well, she knows that, Google.
Yeah, she'll find us. Yeah.
Okay.
So-
Because I'm not sure, but maybe somebody from the audience can help me. Something like that doesn't exist here in Holland. You have your website, which is of an open structure. You sound like an organization that provides much more services than just offering space, right?
Yeah, I mean, we try to be a one-stop shop for student accommodation. As I said, I've focused on international students, but we do deal with local students as well, since we've had access to halls of residence and have 2 halls in London that we lease ourselves, and just opened our study hotel in Brighton just a couple of months ago. Now we have much more to offer, but we like to think that we can fulfill any type of housing need for a student, regardless of the sort of course that they're doing.
Is that your next step, that you will provide the accommodation yourself? Is that the logical next step?
Well, we already do. I mean, we already we have apartments and houses, house shares, so students can rent a room in an apartment, or a student house, and we lease houses and apartments. We have apartments above our office in central London, in Oxford Street, where students can book just a room.
Okay.
We've also got a couple of halls of residence that we lease ourselves in London, and the Brighton one is our new project that that one was a little bit different because we had the opportunity to decide, since we rented the building of 134 ensuite rooms, the building was gutted, and we were able to design it. We were able to say, this is what we think students want, and we were able to literally pick out every tile in the bathroom, every piece of furniture, and so forth.
Do you guarantee the rent on that building? Because that might be an interesting model for investors.
We rent that building from a landlord.
Then it's up to
we
you
have a
to
long lease.
you sub-rent it to the students?
We do, but we do. But I mean, that is basically our building. We rent the whole building. We have a very long lease on it. So, although we don't own the bricks and mortar, in effect, we own it, so to speak. Yeah.
All right.
So then we have to find the students.
Any international plans?
Beg your pardon?
Any international plans? Moving out of London and looking at other places?
Not at the moment, but it's always a possibility, you know. But I think, Brighton for us is our first our first step outside.
That's a big step.
Our first step outside of London. So
I've been in Brighton. I know that's a big step.
Yes. Brighton is only, for those who don't know, is only an hour by train from London, and it's on the coast, and it's a big student city. But I mean, big. It's important for students because it has 2 universities and numerous language schools. So it was a safe one. But we'll see what we'll do next.
Can I ask Marcel Rasche to come forward? Marcel? I even have a chair for you here, so. Okay. Well, you can take this one. Welcome. Can you tell me a little bit about what you do?
Well, hello. Today I'm here to talk about education. I represent a university which was founded in Amsterdam 4 years ago, which is called Knowmads, which is an alternative university where students take actual ownership over their education in a very literal way, which also goes into designing their own courses and designing their own schedule. And what we gain from this is that we get a very intense feedback from the students about how their education should be designed and what education, or in general their life during the time that they are a student, should look like and what it should give. Because in a sense you could also say we don't give students anything because we don't have any hierarchy or somebody they can tell to put something in, fix something, or fix a course for them, because they have to do everything themselves. It's an entrepreneurial education, and as part of this education, you get your first startup on day one, which is the school, which you have to run. From this comes a very deep identification with the school and a sense of ownership, from which we can see very clearly what the students really want. Because what they really want, they will put in themselves. What they kind of want, which is nice to have, they might mention, but it's not going to happen because they're not going to put it in themselves. And what they don't want, we don't have. So we can see very clearly what students want. And, well, I'm here today to talk about that.
What do students want?
I'm glad you asked.
Yes, yes.
So, one example is, the song we heard earlier here. It was a really beautiful song. Thank you for wherever you are for singing. It was really beautiful. There's a video you might have seen from an, I think, American professor talking about what his students really want these days. It's named "What If Money Was No Object?" You've probably seen it. He asked the students, what would you like to do, what would you like to learn if money was no object? And what they answer is that lots of them say, okay, I want to do arts, I want to sing, I want to paint, I want to dance. But everybody knows that you can't earn any money in this, so they don't do it. So there is a demand to do something different, something that is not maybe related to our current business world, but more connects to their heart, more connects to the learning as a full process in that sense. We would describe it as learning for the heart. We say at Knowmads, learning has to be head, which is knowledge learning, which we are very good at traditional universities, which we are amazing at actually. There's learning for the hands, which is direct application, which are projects which we do already at universities. There's internships, it's built in there, and we have learning for the hands. And what we add is this part of arts, this part of direct, genuine contact to our peers, learning together, designing our own education together, which is learning for the heart. Which is implemented in a way very simple, which is if we give the students a little freedom to design their education themselves, we come to a level where they, add the small things. It goes back to very simple things that if you don't have to go to the lecture, you maybe choose that afternoon to sit down with some peers to just talk about life and what is important in life and what are your dreams and what do you want to change in this world. And suddenly a project emerges. And these things are the ones that are important. And these things are also the ones which trigger them on a very, very much deeper level, on an emotional level, which is also then, makes them dream and makes them see their dreams and, dare to pursue them. And this is something which connects now to student housing, which I think can happen anywhere. Like the platform for this connection, for this exchange to happen, can also be in housing. And this is, in my opinion, one of the next steps.
So how would your perfect student house look like?
My perfect student house. So, no, I don't know. See, for me, myself, I would probably not be alone. This is important. But I will decide.
You get the 2 beds variety. Yes?
That's good. No, in the end, it starts with the sense of ownership for me. It's very important for me that I have the possibility to decide and to design my own environment. Because on the one hand, I know best what I want, it's that easy. And if you let me, I will do it, and you'll have less cost managing me, which is great, And also, from that, it's so much more creative, because as I see that I can design the space myself, can't change around furniture in the common space, I don't know, create parties myself and book the kitchen space for a dinner when I have with friends, I don't know. Yeah, all this stuff happens, and suddenly, I don't have a hotel, or I don't have just a space, no, I have a home. Okay. And in this home, I can get active with the people around me and feel this level of empowerment. I think this is important. This trust that I get from the facility I'm staying in, and this empowerment that I'm allowed, but also encouraged to do something and to decide myself. So I'm not getting...
Who's providing that for you? You're doing that yourself?
Well, right now I'm providing it myself, of course.
But if anybody else could provide that to you, what does he need to provide to you? How does that translate? This is a room full of very practical people who understand this feeling of trying to make your own life, but how does that translate into a 7% return on your investment?
See, I'm glad you asked.
Yes.
It's very simple in the end, You have, I don't know how many we have in Amsterdam, 600, 700 students staying at the student hotel. This is these are 600, 700 people who want to design their own environment, you know. Those are people who want to have more than just a place to stay, who want to exchange with people who, you know, these are people who dedicated a part of their life to studying, to learning about life. Not only about medicine or psychology or law or business or whatever, no, it's about life. So if we can give them this opportunity to design things themselves, they will. So what happens? We have lower management costs. Suddenly we don't have to, I don't know, clean up the common space every time because the students design it new every day anyway. Then we do less marketing.
Oh, that's how they call it.
Yes, of course. I mean, of course, sometimes there's going to be a mess. But there's other 600 people who are interested in having a clean space for themselves. So when somebody comes in who wants to change it again, he will. Okay. If we make that easy enough, it works.
Next time I meet my daughter and ask her about the state of the room, she asks me, "This is a creative?" He tells me it's a creative project. That's the.
Yeah, but for example, if she has a boy over, then she'll clean quickest.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Quick enough.
Okay.
You get my point.
Yeah, I get your point.
Students also have guests. You know?
I'm still trying to. Okay. Yeah.
But
my daughter and a boy. Okay.
But it's not only about practical stuff you won't have to manage. You know, what this creates is an insane brand identification. If you give people the ownership, they feel this is my hotel, this is my home, this is my place. So they all become immediate ambassadors of your brand. And this gives you an amazing standing in the market. And this not only like financially translates to less marketing effort maybe and easier bookings. No, it makes your business fail-proof. Because at the point where your business is in jeopardy, you can contact all the people who stayed there, who have really gotten something for their life out of your business, and they will jump in and help you.
And do you have an example of a project somewhere where you think,
yes,
this is it? Yeah. Tell us about it.
At our school, it works.
Just try to visualize that for us.
Looks a bit like a pirate's nest, somebody said. You walk into a place in Bos-en-Lommer here in Amsterdam, at the Rasche, around 550 square meters, where 50 students and entrepreneurs study and work. And you'll see every day something very different because tables have been moved around for the event the night before, and something looks still very messy, but 5 people who already came in to work early in the morning, so they have already put their desks for themselves together again. Then later, 20, 30 students come in to join a workshop and do that together until 5. In the meantime, entrepreneurs join the building to work together on different projects, put tables together and split them up again to work individually maybe. Students leave the workshop, cook in the kitchen together with the entrepreneurs, eat, exchange about ideas over lunch, then talk about maybe some business ideas they have and projects they can do together. Spontaneously, they decide to have an art jam in the evening and invite some musicians. And after that, they have drinks. And it's like it's their home.
Who's your landlord?
Municipality?
Okay.
It's a private owned.
That's a forgiving.
Business.
It's a privately owned business who owns it. So there's a real landlord who is not nervous.
Like we rent it from the municipality.
Okay, yeah, that's a more patient landlord. Yeah. Yes.
But
okay.
The school rents it in this sense.
All right. Can I ask David Chapman to come forward? Hi, David. How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
First of all,
I'd like to compliment Marcel on being the only person so far who's managed to render you speechless. So far.
Yeah, so far, yeah. So it's, tell me a little bit about you, and then I'll ask you to comment on one of the things that were said.
Yeah, sure. I'm the Director General of the World Youth Student and Educational Travel Confederation. We're a not-for-profit membership organisation, and we have a membership of around 500 people, 500 different businesses across the world who are involved in all aspects of youth travel. Now that may be au pairing or work exchange, and we have a very active sector association called Staywise who are represented here today, who look after all of the interests of hostels and student accommodation. Our membership would probably handle something in the region of 30 million students a year, or young people and students in their travel every year. So it's a very, very big market segment. The UNWTO estimated last year that 20% of all international arrivals were by young people, and they put a value of $183 billion on the value of youth travel last year. So we work, I'm sort of slightly at a different angle, I suppose, to specifically what we're talking about here, because we work very much with young people in youth travel. But my background prior to joining the Wise Travel Confederation was 6 years in London at a not-for-profit student accommodation property.
Okay. Would you comment on what was already said, specifically the story here about where the biggest opportunity seems to arise, which is London, Vienna, those places? Can you recognize that? Do you understand what's going on? Why are there these hotspots?
I think there's a growing need for education. I think that there is a lot of opportunity.
So sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Where does that growing need for education come from? Where does that doubling of international student travel come from? Where's the reason for that, behind that?
It's the growth of what we would call the BRIC economies, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China. There's a lot of growth out of those areas. Enormous number of Chinese students coming through. Okay. And they are, in general, looking for English education.
Okay.
I think the UK has been very lucky in absorbing vast quantities of this international student, but I think that the opportunity for English-speaking countries, Scandinavia and Holland in particular, to take advantage of this is very much there now.
Okay. So it's the draw of English as an important aspect of that. And,
yeah.
But did I understand you correctly? You said only 16% of the growth in Europe comes from abroad. 84% was internal growth.
Yes, so far, yeah, that's the situation, that so far Europe is an attractive, some European destinations are attractive study destinations for Europeans. And we're not talking about Erasmus program, because Erasmus program is short term. We're talking about bachelor's, master's, so those who come for long term. And the other 17% is coming from outside of Europe. For example, Netherlands, out of the 28,000 students, 17,000 are from Germany. So it's still, we call it intra-regional mobility. And what we're playing for here in Europe is that we attract the people from Asia, from Latin America mostly. That's because as you asked the question, like what drives the mobility is the fact that the educational supply in those countries, in Latin America and Asia, is not catching up with the economic well-being of those people. So, for example, in Pacific Asia, we have 1 million new millionaires in last 5 years in capital assets only. And the number of millionaires in Asia is only 1 percentage point behind Europe. So basically money is there, but the educational systems in China, in Vietnam and Thailand are not sufficient to cater for demand. So it sends people away from their source countries, because if I'm rich, why would I let my kids study in a university that might not be as prestigious, as good, as I have money for? So I send the kid abroad.
I can afford to. What experience are the students looking for?
Very much cultural. It doesn't really matter whether they are a student that is studying or a young person that is travelling. Overridingly, what we're seeing is the desire to mix with the region that they're in, mix with the locals, and to really understand the culture of the area that they're in.
Her model, sitting at the breakfast table in the morning with the family.
Yeah, and we see that, if we just look at a young person travelling, we'll see that one of the top drivers is cultural exchange. They really want to understand what's happening in the country that they're in. They want to learn the language, they want to see the traditions, and they want to visit the attractions. Not the tourist attractions necessarily, they don't do the Madame Tussauds and things. They want to go and visit small independent attractions that they can go and learn something from.
And is it an investment? Are they returning to those places? Do they stay in those places? Do you know anything about that?
Totally, yeah. There's a combination of things. Returning, definitely. We see the youth traveller of today becomes potentially the business traveller of tomorrow, the family traveller of the day after that, and the retired traveller again in the future. So there's a constant travel. We're also seeing that young people more and more are expecting in their life to have periods of employment and periods of travel. Not necessarily defined, but over their lifespan. And sorry, there was another question. I can't remember what it was.
Well, the experience, that was important. And where were I?
That's right. It's our
That's
age.
the second one that you
young
succeeded also in stupefying me. Okay. You know what we're going to do? We're going to ask questions to the room. That helps us a little
So
bit.
we can think about it.
Yeah, I can think about the other part of the question. Is there a question? Are there questions? There is a question.
Hello. Yeah, really interesting.
Who are you?
Sorry, yeah. Charlie McGregor from the Student Hotel. And I find it quite interesting as an operator to hear the different requirements that students and young people want. And from an operator, sometimes it's pretty difficult to accommodate for everyone. So I think it's good that if there's a number of different operators in the market and they choose for their speciality and focus on that and allow the other operators to focus on their own thing and hopefully create enough diversity in the market to give the students a choice. But it was more, my question was really, how do we, we've heard a lot about what people want, but to go back to the question, how do we deliver that? How do we turn around to the city of Amsterdam, for example, or the country of Holland and say, give us as operators all the flexibility to offer rooms for housing anywhere, renting into individual rooms in Holland, which we know is difficult.
So the question is, what do you have to offer?
Now, how am I as an operator able to deliver that within the restrictions, planning restrictions, within the ticking the box of the specific funder? How can I deliver everything that is requested from my customer?
I don't know anything about government and planning, and I know a certain
Cumbersome,
amount
cumbersome.
outside. I know a certain amount in the UK. I think clearly, certainly with Brighton, the council wanted to understand what we were going to give to the community, and of course. When you have local residents and residents associations that will sometimes go and speak to the council and say, well, actually, we don't want students. Students is sometimes a dirty word in certain places. And I think it's a matter, certainly for us, it was a matter of, because we met with a lot of local authorities, of explaining the benefit to the community of having this particular...
Can you prove the benefit?
Sorry?
Can you prove the benefit in sense of if you can promise a lot, but you can also,
yes,
also
I mean,
need to
it's
prove.
going to take a bit of time to prove it, but certainly, certainly we've employed people locally, and remembering that we're a London company, so we've now gone out of London, so we've employed local people. The area in which our study hotel is located has a lot of restaurants, a lot of shops and stores, so we have yet to prove it because we only opened in September, but I think it's probably a matter of convincing local authorities or whoever they are that this is a good thing.
Well, the message is they don't want to be isolated. They want to be integrated in the local community, so maybe there are basics for exchange.
I think there's a lot of areas that all operators can look at here. Again, it was part of the discussions yesterday, was looking at the economic impact of something, and there are two sets of impact. There is the economic impact, there is the cultural impact. If we stick with the economic for the moment, we've got a member of Staywise that runs some very large hostels, and they commission an economic impact survey on each of their properties, so they're actually able to prove how much employment that they bring to the area. And that's not just employment within their hostel, but it's employment where people are having to take extra staff on into their shops or laundrettes or restaurants and things within the immediate vicinity. But also, you know, looking at it from Charlie's point of view on a more governmental or national basis, is you've got to consider who are you bringing in. And if we take Amsterdam and Holland in particular, there's a real market opportunity here. There's a very low level of international students. It's minuscule compared to even even to the city of Westminster in central London. It's 6,000 versus 38,000. Just
38,000.
38,000 international students just in the city of Westminster, compared to 6 in Amsterdam. And if you actually consider what are these people, they come in, they put money into the economy because they're living in the area. They then learn. They hopefully then get a job in the area, so then they're paying taxes, they're paying rent, they're continuing to contribute into the locality. And again, Caroline from Amsterdam Council, that's her objective coming up now, is to encourage people to then stay in Amsterdam, fall in love, get married, have a family, and the net effect is a continued economic growth and economic impact.
One thing I forgot to mention also on that is, in our case in Brighton, there are really no private independent halls of residence at all in Brighton. So this has really helped the language schools who had a real housing problem. It was homestay or host family or nothing. So I think that has also made a major impact, because a lot of these schools have actually taken blocks of rooms from us for the entire academic year, because at the moment there's nothing like it, and certainly nothing of that quality available.
Yeah, I think, as you also pointed out, that for your question, like how can you turn around a government or in a city, just continuously proof of concept that in the beginning, when Student Hotel was launched in Rotterdam or Amsterdam, people were also scared, like, what's this Student Hotel? Same for Housing Anywhere, like strange online housing platform. Probably also same for a university run by students, that people think like this is strange. But after a couple of years, you prove yourself, especially Student Hotel has enormous success, at least in Rotterdam. I think that if you point it out continuously to the government that look, it works in other cities, look, it works in other countries, I think that's how you can best turn around things. It takes a lot of time, but then in the end.
Student hotels also take non-students, of course, so that again is benefit for tourism, isn't it? Because we actually do have some non-student rooms, which is, I believe, what the model here, and in the student hotel as well. So that's got to be good as well.
That's your point. It's not just students.
It's not just students,
young, traveling people.
That's right.
More questions? In the back.
David Timms, IQ Student Accommodation in the UK. Just an aside before my question, by the way, I live in Brighton and your hall has been built around the corner from my house, so I probably need to see you afterwards.
Have you seen it yet? No, you must.
Question for Samuel. We've heard a lot today about the desire to learn or study higher education in English. And there's a great concern in the UK that we lose market share to sort of Canada, the US, Australia, New Zealand, etc. I understand that even in Holland there are over 100 programs taught in English. Sam, is there any research which shows the growth outside of English-speaking countries of higher education courses?
Yes, this is pretty easy. That the higher education student mobility internationally is quite well monitored. So it's not room to present it over here, but that's basically all the mobility flows. Can probably send you a link that it's done by UNESCO. You can click on a country and you can see how does it perform as a source market as well as a destination. And all the countries in the world is open source, so you can find it there. And yeah, that's
okay. One more question over here, the last one. Here. Just can you, lady over, stop, left, yeah.
Hello. Is there any research on what influences a student's decision as to which country they study in?
Okay.
You're the numbers guy here.
If they want, what I mean is, if they want a degree taught in English, how do they make the decision where to go at the moment?
So you're asking about the economic impact of international students, right? Or students in general, or?
No, why would they choose the US versus the UK versus Australia versus Amsterdam? How do they make that decision?
Yes, there is a research for it. That's
Thank you.
it's again.
Can you comment on the reasons?
Say again.
Can you comment on the reason?
A reason? When it comes to international mobility, then the value is more important than price. So these are usually rich kids, well-positioned or well-situated in their source countries or societies. And when we did the research for British Council in Russia this March, that price was only the third factor that made the decision or motivation to study abroad. So it's prestige, or rankings, or whatever however you can measure it, and then the quality of education, and then it comes to price. So these are the major factors. So obviously, the brand of the city, and if somebody wants to spend there 4 years, then
Is there an element of prestigious in there? I was there, I studied there. Is that an important aspect?
let me put it in these words. There should be something to write home about.
Yeah, right.
So-
Well, explain it to your parents where they paid so much money. Sorry?
No, I was just going to comment that generally speaking, young people do an awful lot of research. We ran a session just recently at one of our conferences specifically about selling to the younger people. And we find that the most used source of reference is friends and family. And people will research all of the options that there are, and they'll look for recommendations, they'll look for experiences, they'll look to read up about the type of places that they want to go to. And just as Samuel was saying, the quality of the education, the relevance of the course that they want to do. Of course, what's also very important now is the availability of visas. And that's sort of changing regularly in different countries. And some countries are much more flexible in terms of opening their visa regulations to allow international students in. And they will tend to see an upsurge in a certain nationality if they can't get into a more traditionally expected destination, perhaps like the UK. So there's a variety of reasons there.
Yeah, from a student point of view, or maybe for business school students, our sole main reference is the Financial Times rankings. Just you look at the rankings. Number 1 is currently St. Gallen in Switzerland. I heard a really boring city, but it's booming currently there because it's now still on number 1 on Financial Times. And
Because I learned it yesterday, how much would it cost to study there per year?
Switzerland, I heard, is fairly cheap. We have some people from Switzerland here.
What does it cost to study a year in Switzerland? I know you mentioned yesterday, wasn't you yesterday, that in England it's going to cost you £20,000, right?
It's around that, yeah.
£20,000.
Yeah.
In Holland it cost
1,700.
1,700, £2,000.
Well,
Just to see, that's to show you that is quite irrelevant for the numbers, for the big numbers.
But that's just the price of the tuition for an international student, and
on top of that, of course,
can be significally more if you're in legal or medical, and then of course you've then probably got 10,000 for accommodation plus food plus travel, etc.
If I
Yes, go.
As we had a meeting yesterday with the city hall, and we calculated the numbers, and it is right. It's 1,700-1,800 euro for Europeans. It's roughly 9,000 euro tuition fee for non-Europeans, but the overall average spendings per students here in Amsterdam are 8,270.
All in.
Yes, so housing, then also living expenses, then the economic impact also calculates the friends they bring, taxes that they produce, jobs, So the direct and indirect impact of a student coming from abroad over here, European, is 8,300, let's say, and even more if it is a non-European. And as David said, that tuition is only one part. Usually they spend more outside of tuition.
Okay. My daughter's contribution to the Amsterdam economy was twice that number. Okay.
I have another related question.
So go ahead.
How are the students funded? Is it family money? Do they borrow the money? Are they backed by their governments? Where does all this money come from
Parents.
to pay?
Bank of Mum and Dad.
Just parents?
Bank of Mum and Dad is predominantly the main source, particularly for internationals coming in. The money comes from parents. Occasionally there are grants. A lot of universities and even somewhere like International Student House in the UK will run bursaries, but they don't necessarily fund the entire education.
Well, for Europe, I think it's parents, but I think for the United States, but maybe Patricia knows more about it. That's I think there's mainly bank loans who supply people.
Or you're an extremely good basketball player. That's the other option. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.